All right. All right, guys. So, class is going to be airspace first, and we'll talk about all the different airspace, how you operate in it, because what is cross country, but flying from airport to airport for all your different airspace, from the VFR, what the equipment is, and how to find it on this washed out TV. So that you can relate what we talk about to everything that you see on the chart and know exactly what to do. Obviously, it helps with the written as well, but this is going to be very specific to what we're doing here in the airplanes, okay, and exactly how you do it for our flights. Now, what I handed out to you is two different pieces of paper. Now, on our student pilot links from our website, when you guys go in, this one is the PDF that's available there. So it helps us. I wrote it going through, but for flight changes, where some of the icons are, so sometimes it needs to be updated. But then I had the thing, I copy and paste it into ChatGPT, and I said, make this look cleaner. So that is what ChatGPT came out with. It took that and turned it into this. So what we're gonna kind of play with is utilize both of them through this. One, what do I need to adjust? And you guys are going to be my demographic of which one stays on the website. This one's nice and clean. I feel like this one, I was more like, you need to do this. And this was just like this. So we'll see how it works. I'll get your guys' perspective by the end. We're going to go about 2 hours a day, give or take, two and a half, see how far we get. There's no way we finish this in that at all. And then what we'll do before we leave, we'll settle up and then determine what day we want to try to do this again. I wasn't going to set 2 days and like, well, we can only make one, I'm not going to go. I was just like, we'll just get 1 day and work on the group for the next one to finish it up. Okay, so I guess I need to go ahead and start with airspace. So I'm going to, in this sheet that I use for the notes, I'll be able to email you a PDF file of it, so you can kind of have the notes from that. All right, let's open a new note. All right, so first and foremost, there's only one reason we have airspace: separation of VFR and IFR traffic. That's kind of the main reason for airspace, because you have VFR who's looking out the window, you have IFR who is not looking out the window or generally in the clouds. So that's important for us, that we need to know the separation services, who gets what. Different levels have different examples of what we need to do, okay? First way we're gonna lay this out is, the most important thing is, it's a layer. The first step is a layer cake. It's a 3 levels layered cake, okay? So what we have is the surface of the ground. We'll use that one. Well, we actually have sea level, right? We have the ground, kind of comes out, flows, goes like this. We all know terrain, so we got that, okay? So we're gonna start with this, and there are 3 levels. One that follows the curvature of the earth, or not the curvature, it follows the ground. So it sits, why did I pick that same watercolor? Where's backwards? I like to try to be fun with colors here. So we're gonna follow the ground, we use green. It's gonna come up, it's gonna go like this. Okay, I'm not very even, but this is layer 1, okay? Then we have another one, way up high, up here. You notice it's flat line, because this one's called an AGL split. That one's gonna be your MSL split, mean sea level split. And then you have a third one, another line. I'm gonna do it as red. Get that out of the way. That's way up here. Okay. Now, if we set these lines, where are they actually at? The first one is running 1,500 feet. Oh my gosh. 1,200 feet. AGL. Okay. This one's 10,000 feet. Okay. MSL, mean sea level. This one is 60,000. You know what? I need to 18,000. Well, there is a split. That's why I was doing 10. I'm thinking ahead of myself, and that's what made me mad, as my brain was overthinking or running faster than what I'm talking. There's a split also at 10,000, but it's not. Okay, that split is not an airspace split. It has something to do later. I was going to come in later with it, but seeing that I already said 10,000, let's just make this happen. So we have our first layer, our second layer, and our third. 3 layers in a general layer cake of airspace. This is it's out there. So the first one is following the ground, right? So in their infinite wisdom, we're going to call that class G, ground level airspace. Follows the ground out. Okay. Like I said, I will email this exactly as you see it back to you. It's got my chicken scratch on it, but you might be able to make sense of it. So that's our class G, follows ground level. Okay. Let's go to the top. The top is up there, and that's high altitude, right? So A for high altitude airspace. Okay. And everything in between. Okay. Everyone that goes flying, that's not a drone, flies in this layer. So since everyone's utilizing it, we call it class E. That's the way I remember it. G follows the ground. Everyone has to cut through the middle, and and A is at altitude. Okay? So that's the layers that are sitting out there. So if I was to pull up a sectional chart, okay, and that's kind of not too washed out. If you ignore any of the markings and you just go anywhere there's not marking, because there's a phrase to say that layer cake is unless otherwise marked. It's G-E-A unless otherwise marked. So seeing right here, we have no markings, right? There's nothing marking, it's just a sectional. So if I was to go up to 1,200 feet from surface to up to but not including 1,200 feet is G. Then you come out 1,200 feet up to but not including 18,000 is E. 18,000 to 60,000 is A. Now above 60,000 it actually goes to E airspace, but that's outer atmosphere, that's space. I'm up there. Okay? So if I go right here, you would have the same thing. If I go there, if I'm there, if I'm there, if I'm there, it's all the same thing. Unless otherwise marked. Now we're not there yet, but see inside the markings, the shaded or the magenta lines, all of those, that's going to have something else adjusted. But anywhere else, it's that way. Okay, now you can also determine exactly and pinpoint where's the ground. Okay, we know out here, that's the problem. Class G airspace, just think of it. That end of the airport. Oh, sorry.
It's the building echoes really loud. Yeah.
You could have texted me.
I did.
Oh, you did? See, then come on now. I turned this off, so while you guys were having the previous class, you weren't getting all my texts on it. Anyway, so we can figure out, like here is 380 feet. It's 400 and does anyone remember the official Evansville field elevation?
422.
Look at that, 422. Hopefully you cheated and also looked right there. That's the highest point. Airport elevation is always the highest point at the airport. So for us, that's out there on the hill. It's gonna be 422. That's why a lot of times you get in a plane, you're like, oh, why does it read 380, 390? Because that's what it is down here. We have a hill between here. So theoretically, the Class G airspace has a little curve. If you want to get really specific, not here because we're Class C, but meaning if there was hills, it's changing constantly. But you can get pretty close when you're trying to find what it is, because we'll determine why it's important later, is by going to any obstruction or antenna. Right here, here's an antenna. These are all antennas. So right there, the top of the antenna is 751 feet on your altimeter, MSL. 261 feet is how far you fall from the top, meaning how tall it is. So how we always remember, this is the height you hit it, that's how far you fall. Okay? So the difference between the two, was that 490? 490, right? Yeah, I think my math is right. 490 feet would be right at the ground. Okay, so then you take 490 plus 1200, that's 1690 minus 1 foot. Class G would go up to that high on our altimeter. You can do that anywhere. You know, here's one, you're at 810, you fall 325 feet, so that's 485, I think. Okay, so that's how you can determine anywhere around. You just find the nearest obstacle and that's where it's going to be. Airports obviously as well. You can see Huntingburg's over here at 529 right there. Heck, whenever there is a hill, a very defined hill, will give you peak markings. So there's one right there at 655. That's the highest terrain in that area. Just because there's a little, if you look at topographical, there happens to be just something, a little mound. Actually, if you fly low out here, out that way, past Bluegrass, if you fly low enough from the air, it looks level. There's a massive hill on the other side of Bluegrass. Like, if you're down at 100 feet, it's still over you. It's kind of big out there. And we only remember that because we used to fly out Boonville, and it's about right here. So we would take off from Boonville, and sometimes you look at it, it's like, what is that? It's mountainous terrain. Alrighty, so that's our standard layers when you go out there. Okay, now, these are important, but why are they important? Because as a VFR aircraft, what can we do with this airspace? Okay, and that generally means weather requirements. Okay, so Class G, we're going to start at Class G's lowest weather requirement for a private pilot. And it is listed as 3 miles visibility. Yeah, that's right under pencil. I didn't know. Switch that was a bit skinnier. Sometimes when you try to be creative, it gets ahead. You know what? I shouldn't even be recording this because this is just ridiculous. 1. So I said don't make notes because I'm going to be updating these. 1 mile visibility. Meaning you only have to see 1 mile out the window to be able to depart VFR. That's it. And you only need to be clear of the clouds. Don't put your wingtip in it. Fly right next to it. Don't put yourself in the cloud. Okay? 1 mile in clear clouds, all you need to operate down there. Now, perspective-wise, 1 mile. Okay? That means you can see the control tower, but nothing past it. The control tower would be fuzzy. Okay? Put it in perspective. All of you have been in an airplane, have been in the air. Yours was a long time ago. But if you're just flying at patterned elevation, that's 1,000 feet high, right? And you're looking over your nose to fly level. That horizon that you see is 10 miles away. If you can only see 1 mile, when you enter downwind, you would not see the other end of the runway. When you enter downwind, that end of the runway wouldn't even be visible yet. That's 1 mile. Because we're past that end, and that's a 6,000 foot runway. So it's not even a mile. It is pretty crappy for 1 mile. Very poor visibility. To actually even fly in 3 miles, 4 miles, even 5 miles, if you're downwind and 5 miles visibility, same thing, you cannot see any horizon over you. You're looking kind of down the cowling and you're only getting a little bit of reference out in front of the wing. It's very, very murky. Most VFR pilots, oh my gosh, visibility is terrible today. I'm like, how far can you see? Oh, I can see, it's 2 or 3 miles. I'm like, well, that landmark, look at your map. You see that city out there? We'll be flying. I'm like, yeah, man, I can barely see it. I'm like, look at your map. That's 12 miles away. He's like, I'm like, on a normal day, even a hazy day, you can see 20 miles. A true 10 miles is horrible. You start getting below 10, it gets really bad really fast. So a lot of people won't even try it. The good news is, why do we do 1 mile close to the ground? So you can at least see straight down and just fly like this. have at least some reference, because it seems weird, but you know, if you're at 6,000 feet, 1 mile visibility, you shouldn't even see the ground, right? Because that's farther than 5,280 feet. All right, so 1 mile clearly counts. Well known as the scud running is what a lot of term is used, because if the weather's poor, it's a great way to get somewhere legally without an instrument flying. I would say I've used Class G more than my fair share in some bad weather, because even being instrument, sometimes there's icing, there's other things you can't go up, so you just stay low, run through. All right, so now I don't know why that's an F, that's an E. All right, now let's discuss moving forward. What if we move up to Class A airspace? I want to do A because A is simple. That's the easiest one. IFR, instrument flight rules. No VFR traffic is allowed in Class A airspace. Now I teach a lot by stories. I've been doing this a long time. And I love to make fun of high-end pilots, corporate pilots, because some of them are the worst. They're not very bright. So Barry Plastics used to have a pilot who was not the best at understanding regulations. And they had a jet, and then he was out here trying to take off, and there was a ground stop. It was a beautiful day, but there was a ground stop going into Teterboro over New York, meaning no one, if you had an instrument flight, you could not take off. They weren't allowing anyone in. So he decided, which I've done, it's like, well, then it's a beautiful day. I'll just go VFR. You can't stop me VFR, and I'll get close and hopefully find a hole. You know, the traffic will let me in. But he asked for VFR at 31,000 feet. They're like, we can't get clearance to say unable. I want part VFR. Okay. What's your request at 31,000 feet? Like, yeah, we're unable. He was arguing till he was screaming at them that they had to let him get a clearance to take off. I finally kicked in. I said, dude, you can only fly IFR above 18,000. His response is, I would burn too much fuel. That's ridiculous. They need to just let me fly VFR at an altitude that I can manage the fuel. Straight out of his word. I'm like, he didn't depart. I don't know what happened. I finally gave up on that one. So, I mean, I've seen this happen, and people make comments. I've got another one for later. So to help you remember, just don't be Barry pilots. Most of us will probably not fly a plane. He hopes to fly a plane up that high, but I used to. Maybe one day again. I don't know. All right, so let's get to the difficult one, the in between, where now I would put a dashed line. This is 10,000 feet because there's a split difference at 10,000 feet for our VFR requirements. Okay, does anyone know why there would be a difference of 10,000 feet? Those that went through the class, did Stephen get you on, there's something specific about 10,000 feet?
Oxygen.
Nope.
The speed of the aircraft.
There you go.
10,000 feet.
Yep, at 10,000 feet, there's a speed limit, right? I should ask you what it is.
250 knots.
Yeah, it's 250. Okay, so it's unlimited above 10,000, but below 10,000 is 250 knots. And that makes a huge difference when we start looking at gaps between clouds and other targets, because if you're going 450 knots, you're going to converge on another aircraft a lot faster than at 250 knots. Okay, so what we have is below 10,000, 3 miles of visibility, but above 10,000 it's 5 miles. Now I will say it's called statute miles. For some reason, everything's in knots except for visibility. It's in statute. I have no clue why. That's always that way. So that's the visibility. And we have a cloud clearance, and I'm going to draw it this way because it's how I teach it, and I think it'll be better for you in the long run. 3, 1, 2, 5. We're going to call this 5, 1, 1, 1. Okay? I'm going to scroll down and break that down of why. If you have a puffy cloud, okay, you could have an airplane flying inside of it, right? Going this way. When the airplane comes out the side, could be doing 250 knots. Gonna need some room, a gap. So you can't fly right next to it, you can fly 2,000 feet. Gotta be at least 2,000 feet away. That gives 2,000 feet from the time this guy comes out for you to see. Now someone get a calculator, figure out how many seconds you have at 250 knots to come up with 2,000 feet. The other thing is we have cool technology that tells us exactly where 2,000 feet is in the airplane, called guessing. We don't have anything. Always like, there's a laser in there. Like, oh yeah, just hit this button on the panel, it'll register how far. We have no clue. Okay, what is 2,000 feet? And here's the crazy part. It's a lot closer than you think. Again, just take a runway in perspective. I've been working with you with landings. We aim for the threshold. Our eyeballs go to the 1,000-foot marker, which is what? From in the airplane, like to the other end of the table, right? It's just that times 2. So if you think, if you're on that end of the runway, you only gotta have the cloud just right over here. So down low, that looks close. Imagine up at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet, it almost looks like you're just not hitting it. It's pretty close. Your best thing is just think, if a jet flew out of that, I gotta give me enough room to see it. That's what you wanna think about that, okay? Now, above it, you can have an airplane climbing, okay? Now, our little piston power, we don't climb very fast, 500 foot a minute. But jet could be clocking 3,000 to 5,000 foot a minute. F-16, let's just take a Blue Angel up through there, okay? So we have to be 1,000 feet above it. Can't get within 1,000 feet because of the climb rate that they could have. Pop out, gotta give your gap. Below it, 500 for the plane going down. Now, big airplanes that are pressurized and don't have a piston, they have to worry about shock cooling. They don't have to worry about passengers' ears. Most of them come down 2,000, 3,000 foot a minute. You're not doing that in Cherokee. Probably I'd blow your eardrums out, but pressurized cabin, you can adjust that. Pistons, you gotta watch for shock cooling, but you don't have to worry about in a jet. But below 10,000 feet with the 250 knots, they have to plateau to keep the speed back that far. They have to plateau so the sink rate can get maybe 1,000 foot a minute. So there you are, you've got 30 seconds gap. Okay, so if you've got 3 miles visibility, and if you look at that, doesn't that 3 kind of look like a puffy cloud? 3, 1, 2, 5. 3 miles visibility, 1,000 above, 2,000 horizontally, 500 below. My brain works very much by picture images type stuff, so you won't find this in a book. This was me in college, struggling to learn all the different VFR stuff. And it's like, okay, which one's it that? And I just said, I'm like, 3 kind of looks like a cloud. And I just kind of wrote it down on my note sheet like that. And it's stuck ever since. And I've taught it that way for 24 years. And you go to an examiner that has one of our students, they ask you VFR in this area, you go 3125. First time I go say, okay, just tell me what that is so I know. And you're just not saying it. And then, 3, 1, 2, 5. Okay? Now, when you go to the above 10,000, the speed limit increases, you go to a 111. It's still 1,000 because the climb rate doesn't increase. But it is 1,000 descent rate. Why? No speed limit, right? So they can drop pretty quick. And again, with no speed limit, guess what the distance is? 1 mile to the side. Okay? So that's where we come with 5, which might be a cloud, I don't know, but it keeps the technique of 511. Like I said, 9115, 111. Okay, 3125, 511. And then we get the Class G, which was 1 and clear. And you basically have all the VFR requirements for all airspaces. There's actually a 3 and clear as well. We'll get to that one. Now, Class G. that we were talking about. So 1 clear, 3125, 511, IFR. 1 mile is only daylight. Okay, at night you're not doing that. At night it diverts to 3125. If you ever have a question and you're not sure, say 3125 and you have an 85% shot of being right, because almost everything is 3125. Okay, G at night, 3125. There are written questions. He may have hit those. It talks about the minimum visibility and cloud clearances in controlled airspace or in certain things. The problem is Class G can be 1 in clear or 3125. So unless the question refers to daylight hours, Class G generally in the written exam is also considered 3125, because if it doesn't differentiate, then it's worst case scenario. It could be day, could be night. There's a couple airspace questions on that. All right, anyone have a question about layer cake that's sitting there? It's there, it's everywhere, unless otherwise marked. Okay, now let's see if I can do the next ones without making stupid mistakes. Waking up. All right, now let's move on. What would cause a change in our layer? Generally, an airport. We have multitude levels of airports and how we operate at them. Okay, so we're going to start at the lowest airport. Okay, so I'm going to give us some ground here. Some ground. And what we got out here is a small little runway and farmland all around it. No real town, nothing major, very small, public use airport, but there's not much going on. And one of the key reasons is it's VFR only, which means it has no instrument for IFR to track to get to that airport. The only way you're getting in is if it's VFR weather. Okay? So with this one, VFR only, there is no reason to change any kind of separation of traffic down low because there's no instrument traffic. So what you have is your Class G ground level just sitting how high above it? 1,200 feet. So funny thing about it is this is not otherwise marked. What you can do is you can go, they're very rare, but it happens. If I'm gonna put an area here where it has a couple, so we go right here. So we got Huntingburg, we got French Lick, but look at Paoli, Orleans, and Salem. Okay? Do you notice how these, almost every airport has something shaded around it, but these guys are just sitting out there. It makes them look weird, right? Paoli, Orleans, all public airports, all paved runways. There's no way into an instrument. It has to be good weather to get in. Okay? So these are all, unless otherwise marked, there is no otherwise marked. So this is, if you go to Paoli, what airspace are you in at the runway? You're in Class G airspace. What airspace are you in at 1,100 feet above the runway? Class G airspace. Just stays the same. Okay? Now, let's talk about the next runway. Okay, airport gets a little bigger. And probably has some homes around it. And has a decent little set of hangars. So this is more of an active airport. And most likely they're going to have the most prominent thing, instrument approaches. There's still no control tower. This is just your standard non-towered come and go as you please. But they're going to have IFR capabilities. Okay, so what they do with Class G is they're going to protect some area over it from... What is wrong with no, it's just never buy Samsung. Samsung's just junk. Always has been. Buy their washer and dryer. They have a 5-year life expectancy. Alright, so IFR. What they have is they have people coming in through the clouds. Coming through this. And they want to protect that area in poor weather. Because what's the difference? 1 mile visibility versus 3 miles visibility. clear of the clouds versus 500 feet below the clouds. Okay? So what they've done, they drop Class E down because 3 miles versus 1 mile, 500 foot versus clear. Does anyone remember what that number is?
To the number 4.
Class G only goes up to, instead of 1,200 feet, it goes to 700. Okay? So over there, you've got 1 and clear versus 3125, right? So if you were to take a cloud deck out here and put it right here, just say that's a cloud deck, right? So if you were over here, you could buzz the airport right there. No problem. But if you're getting near this airport, can you stay at that altitude? You can't, because if you're in here, how low do you got to be below the clouds? 500, not clear of them, so it would push you down. Now, you don't have to go all the way to 500, because at this 700, you can sit there right at 700, but you couldn't get, it builds a little cushion inside there. The idea is if you're out, if VFR targets and it's pretty poor, it's a great way to say, hey, kind of push away, instead of flying your straight line past the airport, you're gonna swing around that airspace. So that's an otherwise marked. Okay, so that's our first otherwise marked, and I'm gonna go with this and go like this. Because when we go look it up, hence all the shaded around all of these different airports. I'm so mad, I mean, poor quality TV, but look. See them all? Pretty much every airport that is non-tower has an instrument approach, has that area. And it can be, look at Hummingbirds, it's coming around and you got this whole thing off the end. That's because that's helping protect they have more of a precision area that they go through, and it's keeping that instrument approach off. So all that means, it doesn't have anything to do with communications, because that's normally the biggest thing where people screw up, especially on their oral. Oh yeah, what's this shaded mean? It literally means 700 versus 1200 for your G-split. That's it. Okay? That's the only difference. No communication, no nothing. What's the whole point? In inclement weather, poor weather, low clouds, low visibility, it just protects people getting too close to the airport. Okay? So that's an otherwise mark. Now, we have one more that is out there, like that, airport, and it's getting pretty big, okay? And what they have is PIFR, meaning precision IFR. I have a very precise approach, most likely, it's the most common reason, where you can be running through the clouds to 200 feet, really penetrating through. Now that can cause us some problems, right? Do we want someone out there even close to this airport flying 1 mile and clear the clouds? The answer is no. So what they do is they block it off. There is no Class G in that region. It's all Class E, all 3125. And you will find that rarely actually around an airport. Mount Vernon is one of them. Mount Vernon, Illinois. Dotted magenta. Where you're more common to find it is if you take this airport. Notice how it just kind of boxes off. So notice how it's off the end of runways. So Owensboro, and we'll talk about that color later, but they're protecting those runways. So if you're coming near this area and it's really poor visibility, they're like, you know what, we need you to just stay way out. Don't even get in those sectors. There's another reason for that as well, because it gets interesting. They removed Evansville's. But it's kind of weird to see Evansville's Class C that we're gonna discuss, but then you got the shade of magenta here. It's like, why do you have 2/1? Because some towers are not over. Some airspaces are 24 hours a day. So they overlap them. Okay? So it's like, well, this one's all the time, this one's sometimes. Go to the bigger difference. All right, so dotted magenta. Let's give you that for a reference. Dotted magenta gets you around that one. Okay? So that is what we call our non-towered airports. So we're moving on. Alrighty, next airport. Airport, sitting there, multiple runways probably, and a decent sized town. And what they do is they decide that they need to protect that airport with a drum, round drum around it, okay? That's protected. It's the lowest level because they put a control tower there as a control tower to manage traffic. Traffic's getting busy. Instead of pilots themselves managing traffic, they need to put someone to be in charge. Okay, so we call that Class D. I did it in blue because it's dotted blue. We'll see. We just looked at Owensboro. We'll show it to you again. It's Class D. Lowest grade. It does have a control tower. Very small. Okay, these things can be only 3 to 5 miles in diameter or radius. Small. Okay, only going to go up somewhere around 2,500 feet, 2,000 to 2,500, depending on what they need. FAA kind of gives it what it needs. Okay, what do you think VFR requirements to operate in there is? If you would guess 3125, all right, it's 3125. You think about this, it's Class G, see? Sitting like that, that makes sense. You know, keeping, you've got your class inside of that's D, you got G, E, okay? You do have to establish communications, comms. You cannot enter Class D without comms. You have to say, the easiest way to think of it is you say hi, they say hi back, okay? As long as you get they respond to your tail number, you can enter their airspace. If they don't want you to enter it, they'll respond and say, stay clear of Class Delta. Or they just won't respond. And if you don't hear from them, you gotta stay clear. One thing that is not regularly followed, but it is noted that D airspace is not a pass-through airspace. That's why it's so small. So if you come up to Class D, you're supposed to kind of just go over or around, not through. It's not transition, because they generally do not have radar. So what's fun about Class D, when you call up, you got to tell them where you're at. They don't see you. They're relying on where you said you were. And they have like this big blown up map up in the control tower and dry erase, and they'll just go, okay, he just called up here. And I'll say, okay, I'm gonna have him come this way. And then another plane calls up, oh, they're over there. So yeah, I don't want him going that way, I'm gonna have him go this way. And they just start tracking it based on where you call. But I've been in Class D where someone said, I'm 10 miles west. They're like, okay, come in this way. And I'm like 5 east. And lo and behold, you look over and there they are. They called it they were in the wrong position. Regularly have that issue where people will call the wrong direction. You know, if you're heading west at an airport, you are not west of the airport. It's always a trick. If you're curious where you are relative to the airport, look at the bottom of your heading indicator, not the top. That's your position from the airport. And that happens all the time. People call and like, oh, I'm west or I'm north, and they're actually south. Because they're headed north, they think they're north of the airfield. No, you can't be north of it flying north. You're the opposite direction. So it's very important that you call it right, because they just have binoculars and they're just gonna start looking for you. They'll have you report distances, because they don't know how fast you are. They can't see you moving. So if you call it 10 miles, they'll probably, hey, all right, give me a shot at 5 so they can anticipate your progress and plan you in. Okay, so comms, very important. Okay, and just to put it, where can we view these? Once again, Right by us, we have Owensboro, Class D, dotted blue. It's a drum, okay? We can try to measure the distance. How wide is this one? Let's see. That one is 4 miles out. Now you see the postage stamp, 2.9. That's 2,900 feet. That's the top of it. MSL. Remember, everything on a map is L timber. Where you'll see it on the L timber, MSL. The only thing that's not is the parentheses. That's the AGO, right? How tall it is. But everything else, that's going to be on your L timber. So it's 2,900 feet. Field elevation's 400, so it's 2,500 foot tall. Okay. Generally, it's 2,500. I've found some that are down to 2,000. I've even seen some up at 3. It's rare. Width will change. That's the 4 miles. If we go up to Terrible Hope, if you ever drive that way, that's why I call it that. So theirs is 5.5. They're a little bigger. Now, funny thing, Class D generally does not have radar control. I don't know what's going on at this point. They do, because they had Air National Guard there. But the other reason is when we get into radar coverage, there's a big hole. So they had to put something somewhere, and they happen to have Air National Guard and an airport sitting there. They load it up. Indiana State keeps us fairly busy over there. It's not too bad. Alrighty, that's Class D. Moving on, trucking right along. Now the next one. I'm just gonna keep going down here. Ground, airport, and we get bigger, right? Multiple runways, decent sized town coming around there. Make that town bigger. So guess what they stick there? They stick a control tower and they stick radar control. Okay? This thing's sitting there with radar because they need to see and manage that traffic. Too much inbounds and outbounds. So what do? We take it, make it a 2-tier system. Okay? Class G and E is still there. It actually splits right here. Because what you end up is the first one is 5. The next one's another 5. So that's 10. So 5 and 5, 10 miles. This goes up to 1,200 foot AGO. And that is going to go to about 4,000. Okay, and we call this Class C. You can see it. Again, Evansville's the easiest one. Most of us are flying around here, so double tier. First one, 5 miles. Second one, another 5. We have Pac-Man living here. Got a nice little Pac-Man out because that is Skyline Airport, and it is inside of 5 miles. Now, Skyline Airport was there before the airspace was. That's why Skyline Airport is there. So when they built the airspace, if they box it in, the control tower would have to control the taxi and the departures off that airport. Obviously not going to be a plan, so they just notched it out. So when we operate out of Skyline, that's where our maintenance shop is, we take off and you either got to call them immediately or you just turn and fly out. Because, again, the inside goes from the surface all the way up, surface to 4,500, 4,000 foot tall, give or take. And then you look at the outer edge, right? It goes from 16 to 4,500. 4 plus 12 is 1,600. So when you depart there, you're not in Evansville airspace until you get to 1,600 feet. Okay? Now, it is inside the shaded, right? So it's Class G airspace to 700, then Class E until 1,200. So you put the math to it. 7 plus 4 is 11. So from 11 to 16 is E. See how that sandwich works? cutting that in, viewpoint there. And then you got that, Class C. If you're above 4,500 feet, guess what airspace you're in? E, all the way up to 18,000, okay? You're not in Evansville, you fly over Evansville, it's all good, no big deal, okay? Oh, ForeFlight just crashed. So whatever update this did, Apple don't like it. My iPad's not a fan. All right, now, so we've got our Class C. We just seen what it looks like. We talked about those dimensions. Guess what VFR is inside of it? 3125. Okay. 3 miles of visibility, 1,000 above, 2,000 horizontally, 500 below. If they do not have 3 miles visibility, if it's 2, they'll tell you the field is IFR. They won't let you taxi or depart out for VFR purposes. They won't allow you to arrive in if you don't have at least 3 miles visibility. Now, there's another part to this, and it's known as the ceiling. I'm gonna put it up here, ceiling. So, what type of cloud is ceiling? Who knows?
Broken and overcast.
Very good. See, don't be afraid to talk. Broken or overcast. If it's scattered, it don't matter. But broken and overcast is ceiling. Okay, what a ceiling means from a VFR standpoint is you can't go through it. I can get through this ceiling, but I'm gonna have to get through this ceiling. So broken or overcast is something you have to get through. Broken being a layer with holes. Now, how big does a hole have to be to go from broken to scattered? Well, if you gotta be 2,000 feet from clouds in all directions, give or take, the hole has to measure somewhere more than 4,000 feet. And then it'll degrade itself to scattered. That's kind of generally how you think, what's the difference between broken and scattered? Well, how big are the holes? Can a VFR plane, if it was a rocket, go up? I mean, we can circle tight and go through it. It needs to be big enough to go through. Well, if there's a ceiling, we have a couple rules we gotta follow. How low do we have to be below the cloud? Gotta be 1,000 or 500 feet below the cloud. How high do we have to be over the ground in most situations? Remember that rule?
1,000.
Nope, that's only congested.
500.
It's 500. So guess what the minimum ceiling to depart VFR at Evansville is? You gotta be 500 feet off the ground, and you gotta be 500 feet below the cloud, so the cloud has to be at least 1,000 feet high. So when I like to talk about, someone says, hey, what's the minimum VFR to depart at Evansville? 3125, or if there's a ceiling, 1,000-foot ceiling. It's 3125, but if there's a ceiling here, if the ceiling's not 1,000 feet, you're not going. You can have 10 miles visibility and 900-foot ceiling, field's IFR. Okay, you can't go in or out. Now I have that. And remember I said that I had another story about commercial pilots being dumb? I was practicing instrument approaches. This was quite a few years ago. And ceiling was 900 feet. And Life Flight was coming off the hospital to meet a ambulance. And they had emergency personnel, or emergency, which they call life flight status. Tower he calls up, life flight status, coming in, and Tower goes, maintain clear of Class Charlie airspace, field is IFR. Helicopter pilot goes, I'm life flight status, I have a patient on board, have to enter. Tower goes, it's 900-foot overcast. Field is IFR. This goes on, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, and he was getting frustrated, and he starts, I've got a patient, needs emergency services, I need to get to the ground. Sir, are you declaring emergency? No, field is IFR. I finally clicked in, I said, if you want special VFR, you gotta ask for it. So, if the field is below VFR minimums, you can get in, known as special VFR. You can request them to degrade the requirements to Class G, 1 mile and clear of clouds.
But they can't offer it.
They cannot offer it. Even if you have a patient on board that is dying, they cannot legally offer it. Because it means that they are offering to you to fly in weather that's not technically, that's below the minimums. They don't know what your minimums are. There's no below minimums. So they can't suggest You fly below minimums. You have to suggest. So of course he said, request special VFR, and they're like, clear land direct to the ramp. As fast as they could.
If you request that, is it because, is there like an FAA follow-up after that
No,
kind of
no.
incident, or is it?
No, we do special VFR here. You get a day in the pattern, you get a 1,000-foot or 900-foot ceiling. I've been known to go out and request special VFR for pattern work.
Okay.
Now, there's some question to the legality of that one, only because how far do you gotta be below the clouds? 500 feet. How far do you have to be above the ground? 500 feet. For the purpose of landing, you can adjust that. When you request special VFR, how close can you get to the clouds? Go to the clouds, so at a 900-foot ceiling, we can come out here and practice pattern work at 900 feet or 800 feet. All the way down to 500 feet. And we're still following the rules. So, a lot of times, and to really follow the rules, sometimes it's like a 1,200-foot ceiling. Some of them will still act, because below if it's 1,200 feet, you gotta be 500 feet below those. So that's only 700 feet above. But our pattern's at 1,000 feet. Clouds are at 12, you can go right to 1,000. The technicality is, even though it's VFR, we have to be 500 feet below to maintain VFR without a special VFR requirement. Really throws the tower for a loop when someone wants to be very specific and request a special VFR when the field is VFR. They don't, because from their perspective, they're just opening the airspace up that has been categorized as IFR. They don't realize we're requesting them to kind of give us the altitude restriction of the 500 away.
Okay.
Or it's, those clouds look a little higher, or we just run the pattern a little lower. Try to do it. Depends on, if we're talking legality, now you're learning to do a pattern 700 feet above the ground. Can be done, legal, sure. We like 1,000, but sometimes you can't get it. So let's practice it. Because generally, the best days to fly are below those low overcasts. It's smooth, it's calm. Some of the best weather you will get is if it's gloomy and misty rain, you're gonna love it. I have soloed more people with no sun than with the sun. The sun's our biggest enemy when it comes to turbulence and wind, generally in general of thumb. Okay? So, you have a few other established things. Communications. Obviously have to have communications. You say hi, they say hi back. Okay? There's nothing that says you have to have permission to enter anything. If they say hi to you by responding back with your tail number, that gives you full force right to just penetrate their airspace right away. No problem, unless they say do not. Okay? The other one that is added into Class C is Mode C ADSB. Okay? Mode C refers to the transponder. You not only have to have a transponder, because there is no place that you have to have it just a transponder. Okay? If there's going to require it, it's a transponder with Mode C, and that's the altitude. When you turn the knob, there's on, which is your position, and then altitude, which is position and altitude. That is not the same unit. When you turn that on, you're actually powering another box, another controller that reports your altitude to them. Then the new ADSB, it's not that new anymore. Anytime you need Mode C, you also need ADSB. The simplistic way, the easiest way to do it is that radar tower out there is spinning, communicating with the transponder, and it uses that ping to see how far away you are in your position, and then it uses the altitude function to say how high you are. ADSB is basically like having a cell phone in the plane that has GPS and altitude position on GPS, and it just sends it to the internet. So it's about as simple as I get. That ADSB receiver is a GPS, 3-dimensional GPS. And all it does is it sends it to a ground-based antenna that's connected to the internet. And it loads you up on the master map on the internet. So that they don't even need that equipment. It's the plane has all the equipment beaming the signal down versus the airport's trying to scan and see. That also gives us options for all the air-to-air, we can see on our ForeFlight. If we have the equipment, it can now, it's called in or out. ADSB out is what's required, meaning to send it out. To receive it back in is ADSB in, which we use the Stratix or the little Wi-Fi receivers in there. And that one is picking up the signal back, picking that map and giving it to you, also with weather and a lot of other things you get with it. But so it really is basically, it's like having a cell phone connection that's feeding that data to them. Okay, so we are required to have mode C and ADS-B within the boundary line of mode C or class C. It is also required above and above the outer rim of class C. Reason is they are departing traffic, and they have airlines, they have big jets. You'll have to communicate with them if you're up there, but they need to know that you're up here and not down here. Are you here? Are you there? Are you way up here? Are you at 10,000 feet and not a problem for my departing traffic? Are you right at 4,500, right in the way? Now I got to redirect them around you. They have to know that dimension over top. Now once you get past the side, kind of interesting, you don't need any transponder or any altitude. And then, they don't know, you could be, if they see a blip here, it could be there, it could be there, it could be anywhere. It gets quite frustrating. If you've been flying, you may have heard unverified when they tell traffic and they say unverified. It just means it's a blip on their screen with no, and they haven't confirmed it's definitely something there. Okay, so comms, mode C, ADS-B, in and above C. Okay. Any question about C? And then special VFR that brought in. Instead of 3125, you can request 1 mile and clear of clouds. The only kicker with special VFR, you have to be a private pilot. If it's at night, both the aircraft and the pilot have to be IFR current or capable. So generally a private pilot can't do it at night. Alrighty, last and final of all of our airspaces. You can move on. Big airport, parallel runways, big towns, a lot of craziness, big tower, lots of radar, sometimes a second control tower. Okay, very big. Busy, crazy. So guess what? It's gonna go up, over, up, over, up, over, up, over, up, over, up, over. Draw it crazy because that's what it is. Kind of crazy. It's known as Class B for big. Class B airspace. There is not a true dimension except in general, they're not gonna go beyond 30 miles. And they're not going to go above 10,000. Okay, in general. But the way these dimensions, it is not like just, a lot of people say, oh, it's an upside down wedding cake. Well, I'm going to tell you, if a wedding cake was shaped like that, no one's going to buy it. Because there are sections that one side will be real big and the other side will be real small, and then it will sidestep. It's whatever their departure corridors need, they will start blocking out. Okay, it gets very interesting. Now, this is where VFR gets interesting, slightly interesting. 3 miles, clear the clouds. Because this airspace is so big, could you imagine if there was one cloud there and every VFR aircraft had to be 1,000, 2,000, 500? How much airspace do they lose? A whole lot. So they're just like, you know what? Everyone's on intense radar. There's so many controllers. They could have 20 sectors of controllers in that 130-mile range directing traffic. You decide to fly in Class B, you might talk to 10 people in 5 minutes. They just keep switching you as you're changing different sectors, especially if you run in the corner of a bunch. Okay? So it's very crazy, very busy. So they know you're not gonna, they don't have to worry about you seeing a jet pop out of a cloud and having space. It's very intense. So 3 mile clear the clouds. Now, if there's a ceiling, 1,000-foot ceiling for D, C, still remains for Class B. Because you don't have to be below the clouds 500 feet anymore. You can be clear of them. But Class Bs are always in congested ground. It's in a major city. It's considered congested area. So congested is 1,000 foot. So ceiling's still 1,000 feet. It would be a minimum 1,000 feet over congested and clear the clouds. Now, mode C, ADSB, out 30 miles. Out 30 miles. It's called the mode C veil. Okay? Anywhere within 30 miles of that airport, any altitude, anywhere in the airspace, out of the airspace, gotta have mode C. Transponder. And permission. Comms with permission. When you're flying near there and they're talking to you, even if they provide you a heading that takes you into their airspace, you cannot enter until they say clear to enter class Bravo airspace. A lot of times when you're flying a slower airplane, they're so busy, they just tell you head right. You know what? Keep your on-course heading, which might go right through it. And they're just gonna go and do this. They didn't clear you to enter the airspace. So what they're doing is they're like, I know I don't have anyone over there till this boundary line. I'm not gonna watch that slow freaking airplane putz its way to there. I'm gonna go over here and deal with this because it's his job to let me know he's almost there and I haven't cleared him yet. And then I'll go, oh, I'll come back to you now. So don't think because you got provided a nice heading that takes you right towards that airspace that gave you permission. The heading didn't give you permission, the words clear to enter class Bravo. If you haven't heard it, you gotta ask, hey, coming up on the airspace, am I clear to enter? And a lot of times you hear them go, nope, now there's traffic over there. I've had to turn around and go the other way before because it just didn't work. Flight planning through Class B could be okay some days, and other days it could take you twice as long to get around. I've actually gone around north, then got turned back around and go back around to the south over an hour just to come back around because it looked good. But they got so much fast airplanes, you're putzing over that way. That looked clear. They get over it. Oh my God, I just have 22 departures I gotta get through there. Now you can't go that way. You come back the other way. So Class B is best to dodge, stay out of their airspace. And how you do that when you look at it is let's go to Cincinnati, would be one, right here. And I'll see if I can get my charts to load. So you can see all the different rings. See how I was talking about? It goes like this, it notches in. Heck, look at this one. It's a squiggly line, it follows the river. Then this one comes up, goes over here and squiggly over there. Then you got this fat chunk here, but you don't, it's whatever it wants to be. It can be. The one thing we do know, Mode C ADSB, 30 mile. Okay? Anything inside that 30 miles? Mode C ADSB. Okay? And we know it goes to about 10,000 feet in general. 10,000 feet is the tops. This little area, now as I zoom in, I want you to see something. You see how it's not very detailed? I mean, I know it's fuzzy on here, but even if you look at your iPad, it's kind of fuzzy. As you move in, right about, a little closer, there. You see it updating to a more detailed map? It's a lot easier now to tell that's running the river. Even gives you border lines. That's up on this. What you have around every Class B is a terminal area chart. So original chart, gosh, this TV sucks, but right here, see this white bar? See how it's a little lighter right there? Okay. Maybe if I zoom in, you can see it a little better right here. And somewhere in it, it's gonna say, well, you can barely see TAC. That box is a terminal area chart. So a normal sectional scale is 1 to 500,000. 1 inch equals 500,000 inches. Okay? Attack is 1 inch equals 250,000. So much more detailed. It's there. So why? Because really, if you want to fly around this airspace, you need to know it. I mean, look here. There's the main airport. That's to the surface, but this brings already 2,100 feet to 10,000. This one right here, that's 3,000. Heck, there's 5. There's 3,500. Remember I was saying it's not, you wouldn't want this wedding cake. It's crazy. There's a 5,000. There's a 3,500. So if I was coming, you were over here. If I was had to get through here, go to Columbus, Ohio or something, you know, I'd be more mindful just to not call them up, drop under, fly 2,900 feet right here, and then climb right back up and go on out. I'd be more inclined to do that than sit at 6,500 and just see what happens. Well, that's east, that'd be odd, so 5,500 feet. You know, you don't know, because here's the runways, they're like this. Now you have other things you gotta worry about though. You got wake turbulence avoidance, so here you are flying under all their departures. That gets a little hairy when you're flying. Just massive jet, and your brain starts going, look at all those wave tip vortices I can't see. You know, but they only drop about 1,000 feet, so it's like, okay. You know, you're more apt to even get even lower. I might drop 1,500 feet or so through there just to make sure I'm well below anything, and then climb on back out. A lot of options. Then you really get detailed in this area with sunken Lunken and different things. We like, this is Lunken Field right there. We call it sunken Lunken. If you've ever been in this area, I don't know why I did that. I've tried to take off this runway right here, take off into a cliff. That river there's a gorge right there. That's a wall over 100 foot thick. It's tall. And I was lined up heavy on here, and I didn't know. Taxi out to runway. I was clear for takeoff. I look, I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna work. She goes, what do you mean? I'm like, you can't outclimb that? I'm like, not in this turd, I'm not. And she refused to give me that. Then she said, taxi ramp, you're unapproved for departure from this airport then. And then someone else came on and said, what runway do you want? And he said, I apologize. She didn't know you can't say no. So I just went to this runway and had more of an angle, and I was able to turn out. I mean, you're end of the runway, the river, a brick wall or a rock wall. I've been there 3 times, and you notice I've never gone back. There's Sporties, Claremont County's right there. You start looking at this, you gotta start taking this and flipping it to a 3-dimensional, because you've got the Class B with all these steps, but look at this, what's this one right here? Around Sunken Lunken. You have giant, remember I said Class B in general, or D? Look at the size of this Class D, even has little jagged marks and all kinds of stuff, doesn't it? But all of that is D, up to 3,000 feet. So you've got, right here, you've got this area at 3,500, that's B. It's D to 3,000, see the 3 there. So what's in between? That'd be Class E, in between there, right? So you actually could fly above 3 and below 35 right through there if you wanted to, and not call anyone. You're in uncontrolled, non-tower controlled airspace. Okay, so you gotta manage that, and then you got Sporties out here with their shade of magenta that butts up, and heck, that just goes everywhere. It goes all around there. Okay, so a lot happening, a lot going on. You just gotta kind of think of it. Look from a SOHUD profile. What would each thing look like? Can get confusing. Now, we'll bring something up that really brings in this mode C veil, the transponder. You see Nashville? See how it's Class C? Just wait. They got approved for Class B. Yeah, they're bumping. And it's really throwing a fit because how far is that mode C ADS-B out veil go?
30 miles.
30 miles. So now all of these airports, I don't know how many, but the reason I know is because Jabiru. Jabiru goes to Shelbyville, right here. Mode C veil goes right to the edge. Now, most of these airports, transponder seems like something everyone would have. Do you know what ultralights don't have? Transponders. Do you know what a lot of experimental light sport, small, the fun ones, Kit Foxes, things like that? Guess what none of them have? Transponder with ADS-B.
Oh, Viper Cup.
Yeah, go fly, nice ball, go do, nice tail dragger, just go out, fly, heck, you got your hand out the window type situation. No longer can any of them operate in anyone who has any of those airplanes in there will either have to figure out, some of them don't have a power system, but I mean, Skylane has 3 planes without a battery in it. They hand start the sucker and go fly. They wear their leather helmet and out they go. And it's fully legal. It stinks because I've almost hit them a few times. They have no comms. You just gotta look for them. Can't have those type of airplanes in that region. Anywhere within 30 miles, no one can no longer own any of those airplanes. So it's kind of good and bad. But you've been sitting there and living there and have a plane for 30 years. It's never been a problem. That Class B pops up, all of a sudden it's obsoleted everything within that region. I mean, you gotta add it, but transponders, you can't just throw it in. It has to be specially installed. It has to be regularly certified. And you're in a little metal Tinker Toy airplanes, some of them don't even have a spot where you can actually put it. Specifically ultralights. So it's they were lucky. He was talking how because they had some construction. That's what came up to it. They're building like 40 more hangars because all of these airports are in it, and everyone's moving their planes down to there. He said it's actually an awesome thing for us. The airport's making millions of dollars off of it because they're. Yeah, he said it's like literally goes just off the edge of their airport.
Just because of the traffic going through Nashville now?
Oh gosh, yeah. Nashville's been trying to be Class B for 15 years. 15 to 20 years they've been fighting to get it. That's why they do so much to get all the places. I mean, I fly airlines. I'm almost always flying out of Nashville over anywhere else. It's dirt cheap to fly out of Nashville. There's a reason they promote their airline because they needed their traffic up to get their Class B. Now, once that Class B is established, I expect it's not going to be as cheap to fly out of Nashville anymore. But from Southwest, Spirit, you name it, Southwest, the cheapest place to get in and out of. Now Delta, they just rip everyone off, and I don't know how they fill airplanes. I mean, every flight I've checked, I mean, Delta's 3 times the price as anyone else. But I mean, they did have good profit sharing, so. But yeah, so that's going to be a big change for all that. So be looking out for that. All right, so that's our biggest, craziest one. Now, outside of aviation or airport use, okay, we have things like military areas and things like that. But before I move on to that, there's one thing I want to say and use the term controlled airspace. When a pilot thinks of controlled airspace, a new student, or even some pilots, they think of a controlled tower, Class D, C, or B. That is not controlled airspace. That is controlled towered airspace. All airspace is controlled except Class G. Class G airspace is the only airspace categorized as uncontrolled because it goes beyond VFR. It goes into IFR. As an instrument pilot, you cannot enter instrument conditions in controlled airspace without a flight plan and a route and clearance and everything. Funny thing, if I am instrument rated, I can fly less than 3125, less than 1 in clear in Class G airspace. At night, I can fly in less than 3125 in Class G airspace because Class G airspace is uncontrolled. We call it the Wild Wild West. We can do whatever we want there. That's where your drones, your RC airplanes, some ultralights, some of them are crazy and get high, but that's where everyone's supposed to be. That's the uncontrolled. That's to do what you want. So legally, an instrument aircraft pilot can enter instrument conditions and maintain Class G. Okay, now that's only up to 1,200 feet, so it's really risky. Generally, we only use it as if we can't get comms and we gotta get off the ground, get a little higher to get them. There are regions out west. I need to bookmark one of them. I found it once, but I'm not going to waste our time. Where Class G can go all the way up to 10,000 feet. So, and it's shaded blue instead of shaded magenta. Shaded blue gives us an indication that G goes higher. Because you get out west where it's just desolate, mountainous, and there's no airports. There's nothing for 100 miles. They don't even have the capability to track anything out there. So it's just Class G, go just up to 10,000 feet. So if you want to hunt it down, just start hunting down shade of blue out west, and if you find it, the numbers will tell you how high it goes. Okay? Now, last thing, like I said, we have military use type airspace. We have MOAs, military operations areas. It's the hash marks. We have a lot around our region. So Fort Campbell's down south of us, a lot of Campbell 2 MOA. So there's hashed, magenta is an MOA. To find out, you just press and hold. So Campbell MOA, 2 MOA goes from 1,500 feet above the ground. So under that, you're flying up to 10,000 feet. Then click on that. It's gonna highlight it. It's gonna also say activation is not continually used. Normally from 7 to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday, I mean all the time. And then generally what they'll do is see operational notes tells you it's Fort Campbell Armored radar approach. 9 times out of 10 they'll also give you the frequency so you can know who to call if it's active. Now, as any pilot, you can fly in an active MOA. MOAs are not restricted. But you should know if they're active, there could be military training environment, there could be missile launches, there could be all kinds of things going on in there. Now, if it's easy to go around, highly recommend you dodge it. Left, right, or up or down. I'm just gonna be brutally honest, I'd go right through the suckers. Because I have to pay for my own fuel. And my tax dollars pay for their fuel too. So why should I have to delay? So I just make them delay. I'll just go right through it. Because all of the military, they got radar, they're not gonna come after you. You can go. I mean, you're really, and from the military they get mad because they have to stop what they're doing. And I'm like, they used to yell at me down there because I'd tell them that. And I've had students that have been in the military and they're like, it's ridiculous. We have to change everything when somebody comes putzing through there. I'm like, I said, are you paying for your fuel or your flight time? No, I'm getting paid. It's like, and I'm having to pay, and you want me to spend an extra 30 minutes, spend an extra $100 to go around? I'm like, not gonna happen. Straight to that, no, sucker. Now, there are limits to this. VFR flight following. Having someone track and watch for traffic, you cannot have VFR flight following in a MOA. Because they can't track, they can't give you updates on military. So, if you choose to do it, you go in, and I've had them, controllers, I've been on flight following, they're like, oh, you gotta go around. No, I'm gonna go through it. No, you have to go around. I'm like, no, I'm going through it. Like, I can't provide traffic advisories. I'm fully aware. I said, I'll go ahead and cancel and squawk VFR, and they go, oh, just keep your code. I've yet to have any of them actually shut me down. But I'm not one that's like, you can't. I can go in there. There's nothing that says we can't. But if it's easy enough to go around, like that one, I mean, even if I'm going north and south, I mean, I could just come out over the lake and go. Now, east and west, this one's considered really small. You get one like we have north of us that is never actually used anymore. You got Red Hills MOA. This is huge. When we would go out this way, I mean, it's blocking everything. Now, when you go to Red Hills, look at it. 6,000 to 18,000 feet. So generally, it's easy to go under. But if I want to fly at 7,500 feet, I don't want to stay low and climb back up. That's huge. So I just go up there. See how it gives you the frequency? Non-continuous, 8th of noon, FA Indianapolis would know. This was used by the Air National Guard out of Terre Haute, and then the guys out of Mid-America over by St. Louis. Generally, what I was told, the group that used it no longer exist. The air squadron that used it, so it ended up being just not used. LGTV. All right. So. So you can go through, you can call and see if it's active, if you want. Because again, MOAs, even if it says it's non-continuous, unless it says continuously always, you go from there. All right, then you step up, and you can go to alert areas. Now, alert area is a little different. It looks just like an MOA, but it says alert area. Alert area is non-military, could be, but it just says high volume of traffic. Alert area just says, watch out, it might get busy. So it's just saying surface to 2,000 feet, continuously, even holidays, all the time. Be aware that below 2,000 feet, there's heavy traffic use. It's all the Blackhawks from Fort Campbell. It's kind of fun down there. We were coming back with the Jabro. 2 Chinooks and 5 Blackhawks coming right. I think they went right below us. Tanner was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, I see those all the time down there. Okay, so then we have restricted. Heck, I could do that in Fort Campbell. Blue, R, 3702 A and B. Once again, you can get your information by clicking on altitudes. If you're not at the altitude, you're not in restricted airspace. If it's not active, It's not restricted airspace. Okay? Restricted is not prohibited, meaning absolutely no. Restricted, you can get permission to operate in it. You just got to call. I've been through active restricted airspace numerous times. Generally out west where it's real big, as long as they're not doing anything. Because out west, you know, theoretically, I guess you would call it Area 51. I've been right over it. It was kind of crazy. Even the controller's like, I just got notified you're cleared into, I forget what the restricted zone is. He goes, do you know what that airspace is? I said, no. He's like, look down. That's Area 51 over there. And you look down and all the planes had like this camo netting over it. Just a dust land. Just flew right over it. He said, but he did say, he's like, they're not doing anything, and I don't have a target within 400 miles of you. We're the only ones out there. It was bringing a plane home we had bought from San Francisco, California, all the way home. It took 3 days. Bring a little Grumman home. And that was one of our legs. It was really, really cool. And that was before iPhone, so I don't have any pictures from it. I'm sure I did, but they were...
circles or anything?
It was really, really cool to see. I mean, it was nothing special. Literally, it's just, flatlands with little hills. They call them mountains. They're not very big. I mean, the terrain was at 8,000 feet, and we're at 10, 12. But it was pretty interesting. So you have your just no restricted, yes, and you will get in trouble if you fly in it without permission. So make note of it. Call. That's why flight following is generally good. If they don't have who's the controlling agency, anyone you're talking to is going to know it. But don't expect them to say, hey, you need to turn. I have actually had a past student who was no longer a student, who was doing work out in California, and he was regularly flying out there, and he flew into one on-flight following with a vector to go into it, and it was still his fault. Controller literally flew him into it and didn't warn him. So that was awesome. But I got him off with a 90-day suspension of his license, but he got to pick what 90 days in the next 3 years he wanted to be suspended. So give me January, February, and March. Meaning bad weather months. And they're like, okay, sounds good. But they called me and we had a discussion. They're like, if you're going to teach them remedial, we're going to make it really easy. I'm like, good. All right. The last one, you have some others in the coastal regions. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't know. If you get in the coastal regions, you start doing some little bit more research on exactly what your ADIS is. That's where the U.S. airspace extends to, and what can you do to operate in it? What if I want to go past it? It was really weird because I flew to Key West, and I got out of the ADIS. When I went to Key West, I went through here. So I was in international airspace heading out there. I'm scared to death of open water. I got to here, I almost turned around. I want land under me. Funny thing is, people in Florida don't fly over land. They're scared to death. Most pilots who trained in Florida won't go, private, they won't come to the continent, they won't come up the States. They don't understand how we fly over land, and I don't understand how they stay over open water. I'm scared to death of sharks. But yeah, I always stay within gliding distance. So I took the plane all the way up to 10,000 feet. My God, I'm gonna get close to that shore if something happens. And then we ran into thunderstorms. I do have those pictures, by the way. It's pretty cool coming in. And we landed, and as I was turning off, the gust front of the storm here almost ripped the door right off the airplane. It's crazy when you get out in the ocean and things just flip. So I don't do a lot. I don't know. But anyway, you have other types of airspace that gets out there. Warning areas that you are getting out there. So, alrighty. Anyone done? Last thing, is the prohibited still up here? Let me see. There's restricted. So prohibited is literally, it's all the time. You can't go in there, can't see it, can't go. They'll have a P in front of it. There used to be one in Lake Michigan, but I think it's that restricted area. It used to be a prohibited area. I have no clue what's west of Sheboygan up there.
Is there probably one over by DC?
Now that, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. we would talk about that a little later, but that is your TFRs, temporary flight restrictions.
Temporary.
Yeah, yeah. But you would consider a TFR the same as restricted? Be restricted airspace, so you can't just fly in it. You can get in there with certain situation. DC's got the big one. Operating within this requires a whole online training course. You carry a certificate. They call them gates to get in and out that are marked by different VORs. I have done it, actually. Oh, I don't want the one plane that I don't have, Cherokee 140, actually the flap on 618's off that plane. It's the one time we talked about a student had an accident, he plopped it off the end of the runway. But that plane was bought with this TFR at, isn't that airport? This one right there. No, College Park. I had to get so many special permissions to go there because anyone who owns a plane there has background checks and everything to be able to fly. And you have to take a straight route in and out. But yeah, I got permission to fly all the way in to the core, the darkest core, to go there. Me and 36463, we both had to get the permits, and then I bought the airplane and then flew it back out. I'm surprised he wouldn't fly, but it was a whole to-do. Fun, if you're in there, you have to have 2 communications radios because you have to be talked to one, but you have to monitor emergency frequencies at all times because they have the military aircraft are constantly flying. So if they come around and they just want to talk to you because they see you, they'll just come up and you just they talk at 121.5 and say, hey, I can help you. Swear to God, I'm not doing anything wrong. Just go and fly. But I mean, literally, if you veer more than 10 degrees off your course for any period of time, they're taking you down. It's pretty tight. It's very specific. Whole online course about it. Don't go there. During sports season, you'll see a lot more of those yellow and red boxes. Right now, I mean, look at this. There's Orlando. You know where that's at. That's Trump's little golf course there. I can't remember what it's called, but literally, okay, here's a few. Small. Generally, what are flight restrictions for? Or for generally open air stadiums, or any stadium that holds more than X amount of people as an event, they have to file TFR. So baseball and football season, they're just littered with them.
There could be a rocket launch there.
Could be.
It could be the Space Center.
I'm sure. It's bread, so they'll tell us. Space launch. I don't see the TFR though. There it is. Come on, come back. There it is. Yeah, SpaceX, Starlink. That one is. Heck, I'll be there. Maybe there'll be one on the 19th. Maybe that'd be cool. I will be right there on the 19th and getting on a ship right there on the 20th. And then I'll be gone. And that'll be right there on the 21st. And then racing back to catch my flight. Spring break. So that is, guess which one that one is? Disney World. TFR. It's permanent. It used to just have a caution or a no fly, but people weren't listening, so they went to the TFR. Weird thing though is Animal Kingdom, a lot of them, I mean, you could go down 500-foot AGL over Animal Kingdom, right over it. The only thing they have blocked off is Disney World. Epcot's right at the edge. Half of Epcot extends out. I've got tons of pictures because I mean, I fly into Kissimmee, so you just come right along. And it's low. I think it's 2,000 feet. 3,000. Yeah, that's what it was. It used to be 2,000. Then the TFR took it to 3, which made it difficult because on this edge. But see how this is 6,000. But this one is, there's 2. Oh, that's 4. Yeah, there's been a lot of changes out there. All right, let's get away from all of that. We hit that hard. That's airspace for the most part. Anyone need a break before we move on to the next step? Yeah? All right. Let's 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes. You don't have to go downstairs. There's another one right over there. Son, if you want drinks or whatever, they're over there. I said about 2 hours. Airspace took.
2 hours.
Well, I like to go through, take that time.
Well,
Pause this real quick.
you know, as much as you read about it,